take a look at recent history since the Second World War. Something really remarkable has happened. First, human intelligence created two huge sledgehammers capable of terminating our existence, or at least organized existence, both from the Second World War. One of them is familiar.
A scientific thunderbolt gives a preview of its destructive force. One of Japan's arsenal cities was selected as the first to feel the weight of atomic power.
It was immediately obvious on August 6, 1945, a day that I remember very well. It was obvious that soon technology would develop to the point where it would lead to terminal disaster. Scientists certainly understood this. In 1947, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists inaugurated its famous doomsday clock. You know, how close is the minute hand to midnight? And environmental disaster, which wasn't thought about much in 1945. But it turns out we now understand that at the end of the Second World War, the world also entered into a new geological epoch. It's called the Anthropocene, the epoch in which humans have a severe, in fact, maybe disastrous impact on the environment. There was a sharp spike in such activities and disaster after 1945. So geologists pretty much, even formally, date the origin of the Anthropocene to about the same time as the nuclear age. Observing that, the analysts and Bulletin's analysts in 2015 mentioned both and moved the clock to 3 minutes to midnight, the closest it had been since 1984. Immediately after the Trump election, late January this year, the clock was moved again to 2.5 minutes to midnight, closest it's been since '53. So there's the two existential threats that we've created. In the case of nuclear war, maybe wipe us out. In the case of environmental catastrophe, severe impact. And then a third thing happened. Beginning around the 70s, human intelligence dedicated itself to eliminating, or at least weakening, the main barrier against the threats. It's called neoliberalism. If you ask yourself there was a transition at that period from the period of what some people call regimented capitalism, 50s and 60s, the great growth period, egalitarian growth, a lot of advances in social justice and so on. That changed in the 70s and with the onset of the neoliberal era that we've been living in since.
We deregulated the airlines. We deregulated the trucking industry. We deregulated financial institutions. We decontrolled oil and natural gas prices. And we negotiated lower trade barriers throughout the world to get rid of needless and burdensome federal regulations, which benefit nobody and which harm all of us.
And if you ask yourself what this era is, its crucial principle is undermining mechanisms of social solidarity and mutual support and popular engagement in determining policy. It's not called that. What's called is freedom.
I'm not in favor of fairness. I'm in favor of freedom. And freedom is not fairness. Fairness means somebody has to decide what's fair.
But freedom means subordination to the decisions of concentrated, unaccountable private power. That's what it means. The institutions of governance or other kinds of association that could allow people to participate in decision-making, those are systematically weakened. Margaret Thatcher said it rather nicely in her aphorism about there is no society, only individuals. She was actually unconsciously, no doubt, paraphrasing Marx, who in his condemnation of the repression in France said the repression is turning society into a sack of potatoes. Just individuals, amorphous mass, can't act together. That was a condemnation. For Thatcher, it's an ideal, and that's neoliberalism. We destroy, or at least undermine, the governing mechanisms in which people, at least in principle, can participate to the extent the society is democratic. So weaken them, undermine unions, other forms of association, leave a sack of potatoes, and meanwhile transfer decisions to unaccountable private power, all in the rhetoric of freedom. Well, what does that do? The one barrier to the threat of destruction is an engaged public, an informed, engaged public, acting together to develop means to confront the threat and respond to it. And that's systematically weakened for people to become more passive and apathetic and not to disturb things too much. And that's what the neoliberal programs do. So put it all together, and what do you have? A perfect storm. Very simple. It's all in front of our eyes. All you have to do is look. It takes no profound intelligence, takes no special insight. Just look at what's in front of your eyes. It's right there. And in fact, I think a lot of people see it.